Was Moses partial to a marathon or two? Did the Buddha have big bulging biceps? Of course, we will never know the answers to these questions, but in this video, I'm going to talk about two of my favorite things, fitness and spirituality. So I'm going to give you a rundown of some of the key lessons that I've learned on my fitness journey by drawing from various spiritual ideas. One of the biggest challenges in my fitness journey has been emotional eating. When the mood gets low, I would find my way to the nearest fast food chain and get me something full of sugar, full of fat, full of salt, and eat until it hurts, unfortunately. And the reason for this is because internally, I didn't feel fulfilled, and therefore I needed to feel full. But of course, it was an impossible task to fill up a spiritual void with food. So it was a folly, and it was something that would happen time and time again. And this was compounded by the fact that I was drawing self-esteem from my physique when I'm lean. So when I'm lean, I feel great because I pegged my self-esteem to a particular physique. But unfortunately, that is something that is extrinsic and changeable. So what that means is when that physique changed, my self-esteem would plummet. And it got as bad as this. There was a time where I wasn't able to look at my own reflection in the mirror because I didn't like what I saw. So what I did was I got a sheet of A4 paper and some masking tape and I covered up the mirror. That's how bad it got. That's how bad this emotional eating got for me. And here's where spirituality helped me overcome this particular hurdle. Because I realized, whoa. I am not valuable because I have such and such physique or because I weigh such and such or my body fat is X amount. But there's intrinsic worth, right? That I'm not some kind of cosmic accident who just happens to be here for 80 years with no meaning. So it took me a few decades, but I managed to find purpose. I managed to find the meaning of my life. I'm not grand enough to say I know the meaning of life, period, but I know what the meaning of my life is. And I have this purpose, and this purpose drives me. It fills me with energy on a daily basis. And that fulfillment is intrinsic. And therefore, I no longer find myself needing to feel full due to food because I now feel fulfilled. So that's one aspect, right? A key turning point on my spiritual journey. Now, when it comes to cutting and bulking, the Buddha was no stranger. In the Buddha's initial phase, he practiced extreme asceticism, which is denying the body of physical pleasures, including food. So Buddha was cutting. Buddha knew Wagwan with the cut. Buddha lost a lot of weight to the point that he was emaciated. Right? People were wondering, are you ill? Are you sick? So Buddha tried cutting, but Buddha found out that this is a folly. Right? It doesn't make sense to subject the body to this extreme. And on my journey, for reasons which I mentioned in the previous video, I got caught up in the cycle of yo-yo dieting. So I would go on these extreme cuts, lose a bunch of weight, and then the self-esteem is good, right? But then I will find myself suddenly bulking up again. And that was the pattern, yo-yo dieting. Now, this is the lesson that I took from the Buddha that has transformed my whole pathway. Because Buddha talked about the middle path. What we don't want is to live life on the extremities. Extreme asceticism, aka the depriving oneself of food, and then on the opposite scale, which is binge eating, overeating, right? So it's all about that middle pathway. And so what I decided to do was to stop cutting and to stop bulking. I found that middle path on my training journey, and now I train and I eat normally, and I'm not fixated on my weight. I'm not fixated on the scale. And there's so much freedom and joy in this. My only regret is that I didn't discover this maybe 10 years ago because I was stuck on this cycle of yo-yo dieting. And so that middle path, this very important principle, has transformed my fitness journey, and I've now found freedom to train. Another key point for me is this notion of simplicity. So for me, training should be simple and my life should be simple. I'm not trying to carry excess. What I've done is I've simplified my regime. Once upon a time, I was habituated and almost dependent on the protein shakes and the creatine, this supplement, that supplement. What was supposed to be an aid became a crutch. So I found myself buying protein shakes for the last 15 years. And I asked myself, Eche, when are you going to stop buying protein shakes? Is it when you turn 50? Is it when you turn 60? 70, 75. And I'm like, how did it go from a supplement to something that is entrenched deeply in my diet? And I had to ask myself, why am I so dependent on the protein shakes? What am I afraid of? Am I afraid of losing muscle? And I realized, yes, there was a fear. If I don't take these protein shakes, then I'm going to lose muscle. And that's a lesson that I learned. I like, you know what? I'm going to stop the protein shakes and get my protein from my diet. Right? And if it's not quite enough, then, okay, you know what? So be it. But I don't want to be dependent on processed protein shakes for the rest of my life. So I simplified my diet regime and I said, you know what? Protein shakes, even the creatine, right? And I'm not knocking creatine. Creatine is very well researched and effective. But I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to use the creatine no more. So simplifying my training, again, has given me more joy, more freedom. I'm not worried about all of these different variables. So now I train with detachment. And that's the key part. And it's a key lesson that it took me decades to learn. So these are some of the things that I've learned on my journey in terms of fitness and spirituality. Another piece as well, calisthenics and spirituality. I feel like calisthenics has a special purpose. The notion of being outdoors, breathing in that fresh air. I feel like there's a spiritual element to that. Being able to train in the presence of others. I feel like there's something powerful and maybe a bit more social than the traditional gym environment, right? Because maybe it's just my experience, but I tend to see less headphones, less people zoned out, and there's almost a certain camaraderie when it comes to the calisthenics. I feel like there is something inherently spiritual within the calisthenics. It's you and it's your body, and you're trying to push yourself. Now, the thing with regards to spirituality and fitness, there's something that unifies both of these concepts. I feel like it is that quest for growth, that quest to challenge oneself, that quest to be better. Right, to be better. So sculpting the soul. We learn lessons every day. We learn through suffering. That's what I found. We learn through suffering. And in the same way, our muscles have to suffer in order for us to get those gains. I feel like we have to suffer in order to make a lot of spiritual gains. We learn a lot of lessons through times of challenge and hardship. So it's no surprise to me that these two concepts, they do have a lot of parallels in them. The body is the temple. This is probably something you've heard in passing. Now, if the body is the temple of God, which I believe it to be, then for me, that means that I need to take care of this temple. So for me, one aspect, the way I look at training is that one of the reasons that I have to train is I'm obligated to look after the temple, right? Like I need to maximize my fitness, my physical fitness so I can do what I'm meant to do on this here earth. So that's the way I look at training. It's an obligation to me, right? But fortunately, I enjoy training. So I look at it like work. It's my duty to keep this body healthy, to keep this body active, to keep the heart pumping, to hit my maximum heart rate. It's my obligation to maintain the temple. And here's a little final point. I find the sauna, the post-gym sauna, or even just the sauna period, I find that to be a very spiritual thing. Now, for me, the way I approach the sauna is if there's somebody else in the sauna, then we'll get to talking. I want to find out about this individual. We know we have something in common, which is the gym, but I'm sure there's plenty of other things that we have in common. So I use the sauna as a place for socializing and getting to know my fellow human being. But if there's nobody in the sauna, then I kind of flip it and get into a little contemplation. And I find a very interesting thing happens in the sauna. I have some very interesting thoughts, creative ideas, contemplations in the sauna. I feel like it does have spiritual and therapeutic benefits. Those are some of my thoughts about fitness and spirituality. What do you think? What do you think? Have you learned any lessons? Do you see any parallels? Anything to add to the conversation? I would love to hear it in the comments below. My name is Etre, and I'll catch you on the next one.